Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Small Church Musicians Podcast. My name is Justin, I'm your host, and I'm a small church musician. I'm on a journey to find the best sounding equipment for my budget, and today we're going to be starting a brand new semi-regular series that I've called Hidden Gems, where I'm going to be looking at a bunch of different pieces of gear that aren't super popular, but I think have a lot to offer worship leaders, especially at the price points we're going to be talking about. Over the course of the series, we're not just going to look at guitars and pedals, but we're going to look at percussion instruments, bass guitars, and even folk instruments. These are all pieces of gear that I feel deserve way more attention than they're getting, especially for the world of worship music. And so today we're starting out with a big one, and I'm super hyped to talk about this. We're going to be talking about the Matthews Effects Traveler Exploratory Reverb. Let's dive right in. So why are we looking at the Traveler? Well, I think that reverb is a really underappreciated effect in worship music and in music as a whole. And while there are tons of great sounding reverbs out there, I've owned a few of them, I really want to show off just how great the Traveler really is. To a lot of people, reverb is just a background effect that's there to give depth to your sound. It adds, as its name implies, reverberation to your sound, and that's great. But to me, getting your reverb to sound balanced and natural while adding to the overall worship experience is a difficult thing to accomplish. I personally use my Boss RV5 as my always-on kind of reverb, just so I have a little bit of depth in my overall sound, as I said. But as I've grown as a musician and as a guitar player, I found that there are times when I really want to make my guitar signals sound prettier, to make it shimmer, to give it a more atmospheric kind of vibe for more meditative songs. And that's where the Traveler comes in. Before we go over the specifications, stats, and controls of the Traveler, let's talk about the three different reverbs that come with it. The three modes are mod, or modulation mode, shimmer mode, or vintage mode. I'm going to briefly explain what each mode does, but I'm not going to get too technical because there's a lot going on and it can be a little complex. Mod mode is based off of the Matthews Effects Cosmonaut modulation pedal, and it's a modulating reverb. Here's just a brief technical explanation. Modulating reverb is a way of increasing or decreasing the variations in your reverb's time delays to get a more complex sound. Shimmer mode is what happens when you put a reverb ahead of a pitch shifting effect, such as an octavizer or harmonizer. What happens is that the reverb spreads out the sound on a sonic level, which makes the pitch shifter, which is looking for a single clean note, hunt around trying to find a single note to lock onto, or to put it simply, it makes the notes shimmer. The program inside the Traveler is based off of the shimmer algorithm from the Matthews Effects Astronomer. By the way, I plan on covering both the Cosmonaut and the Astronomer on this series at a later point. I've used both extensively, and they're both fantastic pedals and very much worth the money. Finally, vintage mode is Matthews Effects' take on a vintage-style spring reverb. I've personally gotten the most use out of shimmer mode, and I use it almost every single Sunday morning. But I will say again, all three options sound absolutely incredible and all have their uses. Let's talk about the controls for the Traveler. The Traveler is a true bypass pedal, which means that when it's not engaged, it will not affect your sound whatsoever. It has one mono input and output 1/4-inch jack, both of which are located at the top of the pedal, as is the input for the 9-volt power supply. I should point out, this pedal does not accept 9-volt batteries, and it must be powered by an external power supply, specifically 9-volt. The Traveler has three control knobs. Starting from the left-hand side is the mix knob, which allows you to blend in the wet signal, meaning the amount of reverb affecting your original dry signal. In the center of the three knobs is the M knob, which controls each of the unique and individual features of the different reverb modes. Finally, the feedback knob controls how long that the reverb will sustain for. In other words, the more feedback you dial in, the longer the reverb is going to last, which could be a good or bad thing depending on how you set up your signal. It also adds for some really creative moments, and I've had a lot of fun using it. In the middle of the pedal, there's a mini toggle switch, which switches between the three different individual reverb modes. The final control is the standard foot switch, which turns the pedal on or off. But also, if you hold down the foot switch, you activate the hold function, which instantly jumps the feedback control to its max setting and then returns it to its previous place once you release the switch. A feature that I really genuinely love about the Traveler is that the LED activation light will change color according to which reverb you have selected or you're using at the time. So if you put it in shimmer mode, your LED light will always be blue, mod mode will always be red, and vintage mode will always be green. It's a feature they didn't have to include, but I'm so incredibly glad that they did, as it makes identifying which reverb I have active so much easier. You just have to look at the light. If it's a different color and your signal sounds weird, you know you're in the wrong reverb mode or a different reverb mode than the one that you wanted. Another huge feature that the Traveler has is that for those that need it, the Traveler has access to MIDI capabilities, which if you haven't heard that term before, I certainly hadn't before I started using this pedal. MIDI is short for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. It's a protocol that allows computers, musical instruments, and other hardware to communicate. I'm not going to get into it here, but I will link an article in this episode's description so you can check it out for yourself if you want to follow up on it. Basically, this pedal can be controlled by computers, keyboards, meaning pianos, and of course other guitars and basses. To accommodate for this, the Traveler has a 1/8 inch jack on the side of the pedal. If you access the pedal through MIDI controls, which that's something I have not experimented with, you can create and save up to 6 different individual presets, which you can use freely. Before I start playing and showcase what the Traveler can really do, I think it's really important that we quickly cover the Traveler's measurements. The Traveler has a height of 1.55 inches, a width of 2.67 inches, and a depth of 4.77 inches. So this is a standard size pedal and it fits comfortably on any size pedal board. I also really appreciate the fact that both the input and the output jacks are on top of the pedal, which makes space saving a really viable feature for this pedal in general. And anybody who has limited room on their board, you've got plenty of room for the Traveler. All right, everybody, and with that said, let's hear what the Traveler can do. I'll start out by playing on mod mode, then I'll play in shimmer mode, and then I'll play vintage mode, just so you can hear what each mode has to offer. I'm not going to break down my entire pedal board because it's my usual Sunday morning pedal board. I'm recording using my Focusrite Scarlett, and I'm using Audacity to record all of my audio. The guitar I'm using today is my PRS S2 Starla, and my amp is the Universal Audio Dream 65. Let's start out with mod mode. Having now owned both the Traveler and the Cosmonaut, you can really hear where the modulation effect from the Cosmonaut was brought into the Traveler. I really like the cosmic vibe, I guess is the best way to put it, that you get from that sound. It's really fun to play with, and I really enjoy writing pretty guitar parts with it. Let's move on now to shimmer mode. Wow, it sounds so pretty. I think the word shimmer is the best way to describe that mode. Obviously that's what it's called, but I think that's really the right word for that particular effect, because it adds that little bit of that shimmery effect to it. And I love using it on more meditative songs, as I said, when I was going through the different modes, what they are. It really adds a lot to it. It adds an atmospheric quality to the overall piece of music, and I really find it useful for weeks when we don't have a keyboard player to add that kind of synth-inspired atmospheric vibe to a song as a whole. It really does make a huge difference in leading worship. Now, let's hear vintage mode. Wow, y'all, I gotta be honest. Vintage mode is the one mode of this I've used the least because, as I said in the intro, I usually have my Boss RV5 on. But if you only get one reverb pedal to do everything you needed to do, and you don't have the budget or the time or the luxury of buying another one, definitely check out the Traveler for its vintage mode because it sounds just like the real thing. I've never owned a vintage amp myself, but I've heard and played through enough of them to know when it sounds really good, and this sounds really good. You could almost hear that vintage spring moving back and forth in a classic amp. Here, I'll hit a chord. It's a G chord, but I'm playing with a capo on the 3rd fret. So it's in reality a B flat, but we're not talking about that right now. Just listen to this for 1 sec. You can really hear that spring moving back and forth, and it's so incredibly convincing. It's so incredibly lifelike, and I love it for that. And if you're looking for this kind of an effect, you've got it here with the Traveler. Here's another G chord. You can really hear that spring moving back and forth, and I really give them a lot of credit because that sounds so lifelike. Wow, y'all. I've got to tell you, having had the Traveler for over a year, I really do love all 3 options of reverb that the Traveler gives me, but my favorite is still shimmer mode. I've been using it for as long as I have to enhance the more meditative worship songs that we do, and I think it adds a lot, and it really makes for some gorgeous tones. I found it really useful in replicating the lead tone to Third Day's God of Wonders. I'll play it for you so you can hear what I mean. I'm going to use my Luna Gypsy Muse as my acoustic guitar, and I'll have my PRS Starla as my electric tone, but I'm going to pan the 2 different guitars left and right, just so you can hear it. Check it out. Oh my goodness, it sounds so good. Guys, let me be 100% honest, as if I'm not already. I have wanted to replicate that tone since I first heard God of Wonders many years ago. So let me say this. If the Traveler or any of the other fantastic pedals that Matthews Effects has to offer aren't on your radar yet, definitely change that. Definitely go check them out. I'm going to have links to their website in this episode's description, and they offer absolutely fantastic prices that cover so much ground at the best prices. Think about all the features we've talked about today. It has MIDI controls, and it has 3 distinct different reverbs, all for $129. That is an outstanding price for an outstanding piece of technology. Since I first purchased this pedal just over a year ago, I've been so impressed with all that it can do. Though I personally really only use the shimmer mode, all 3 modes are so incredibly versatile, and they all sound so great. You will get such an incredible amount of use and value out of this pedal, and I'm very happy to recommend it and all the pedals from Matthews Effects. But tell me, what did you think of the Traveler? Which mode was your favorite? Is this a pedal you're considering purchasing now? Did I miss something? Have you ever even heard of Matthews Effects before today? Let me know in the comments because I'd love to hear from you all. And I pray very much that this episode has been of some entertainment and help to you all. You can help me out at Small Church Musicians Podcast by liking the show, leaving a review, sharing the show with someone on social media, and of course subscribing to the show for more episodes like this. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search Small Church Musicians Podcast and you'll find us pretty darn quickly. I upload new episodes every single Tuesday between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And one other thing. If you want to help shape upcoming episodes of the show, then definitely check out my polls in this episode's description and all my episodes. You can vote on what topic I talk about next, so it's definitely worth your time. And so, friends, remember, my goal for this show is that it would become a resource for everybody listening, but especially to my fellow small church-based worship leaders. We're dealing with such a unique set of challenges, but you need to know that you're not alone on this journey that you're walking. God has called each and every one of us to lead his people in worship, and that's such an awesome and humbling responsibility, and it can get so discouraging when you feel like you're doing it on your own. So please know you're not alone. You have friends, you have allies, and you have resources on this road. So until next time, I'm Justin, and I'm a small church musician. I'm on a journey to find the best sounding equipment for my budget, and I will see each and every one of you next time. Have a great day. Bye.